Good evening and welcome back to another Fantasy Football Fix daily price predictions video. My name is FPL Nacho and this is the series where we discuss potential FPL price changes to help you build that essential team value on the way to FPL glory. Now, a quick reminder that these FPL price changes aren't an exact science and they can alter. So in order to monitor these very closely, head over to fantasyfootballfix.com or download the free app which provides you with push notifications so you don't miss any of these potential FPL price changes. So without further ado, let's take a look at tonight's potential FPL price changes. So here we have the Fantasy Football Fix price predictor, as you can see on the screen here. And for those that haven't been on fantasyfootballfix.com before, this price predictor tells you the percentage that players are going up in value each hour and also when they are predicted to change in price. So as you can see on the screen here, I have all the players here that are potentially rising or falling in price. And usually, the regulars will know, we usually do a watch list of the potential players that are changing in price, picking the most popular players because there's usually so many that are changing. But as you can see tonight, it's a bit of a barren wasteland, I can't lie. So there are some notable players that are going to be rising and falling in price. But unlike previous videos, we don't have 20 or 30 that are going to be changing overnight. We have a select few so I can keep it on the usual screen. And as you can see right now, the only two that are predicted to rise in price tonight is going to be Chelsea's Rudiger and West Ham's Benrahma. Now, of course, Rudiger actually didn't keep a clean sheet in game week 6. I think obviously off the back of consistency with him and Chelsea as a whole, as a unit, he's been a very popular pick for managers recently because of his consistency in the Chelsea team and also with the fixtures and the form that Chelsea have been in. Man City, of course, was a tricky fixture in game week 6, but for those that don't know, Chelsea's fixtures from game week 7 are really, really good and definitely a team to target. And clearly, Rudiger is a player that managers are targeting. Now, in yesterday's video, FPL Raptor Ross did a really good video looking into Marcus Alonso, who did rise in price last night, another popular Chelsea defender. So once you finish this one up, be sure to head over to that video yesterday, check out a bit of deep dive on Marcus Alonso in particular. So the other player that is potentially rising in price tonight is going to be Benrahma, and probably a bit of an interesting one, very hot player at the start of the season, of course, with the form that he was in. Quieted down a little bit, but still ticking over nicely for managers. And currently at 6.5 million, potentially rising at 6.6 million tonight. Currently over the 100% progress bar, so we are expecting him to rise in price tonight. And a couple of notable fallers potentially tonight is going to be Chelsea's midfield man Mason Mount. Obviously, he was injured last game week, wasn't able to feature against Man City. We're not sure about the long-term injury status of Mason Mount. Hopefully the press conferences will give us a bit more information. But right now, managers are looking to sell him. He's currently falling at 0.3% per hour. He's below the 100% threshold, so we are expecting him to fall in price tonight, who could be a nice steal further down the line with these Chelsea fixtures. And a few other notable players that are potentially changing. John Stones, obviously Laporte and Diaz have got a formidable partnership right now. Don't see John Stones getting any minutes as it stands, so he is due a fall to 5.2 million, which could be a steal if either of those two get injured. And again, another notable injury is Callum Wilson, of course, potentially looking to fall in price, but again, somebody who has a bit of a longer term injury. But in particular for this video, we're going to have a look at Benrahma and of course at Rudiger and some Chelsea alternatives that could be available to you in the coming game weeks. So here I want to show you guys a really good feature of Fantasy Football Fix, and that is going to be the predicted points, which shows itself off here in this kind of graph chart, whatever you want to call it. And you can see here that I've decided to filter it by midfielders at 6.5 million and under, because of course right now Benrahma is sitting at that 6.5 million and threatening to rise at 6.6 million tonight. And really, the whole benefit of this is looking a little bit forward into the future and at the potential points returns of these midfield assets. So we have looked over a 5 game week period here because, of course, that just gives us a bit more of a longer term perspective on an asset rather than 1 or 2 game weeks where sometimes the FPL community call that a bit of a punt. So here I have decided to do that over a 5 game week period. And as you can see here, Sarr of Watford is still topping the charts at 21.9 points over this period. And of course, it's hard to knock Sarr right now off the back of his consistent form. I think has 3 goals in 2 games now, and clearly Watford's talisman in that side. And Rafinha is currently second on that with 19.2 points. Again, Leeds are coming into a bit of a tricky run coming up. Obviously have a good fixture at Watford at home, and it's worth noting that the dependency on their injury depends on the points predicted. So for example, Rafinha here, if he was to be red flagged, he would be predicted to score 0 points because the anticipation is he won't get any minutes. So that does sometimes skew the potential points of players. But of course, here, the one we're looking at is Benrahma of West Ham, who is clearly available for game week 7. And as you can see, he is currently predicted to score 17.6 points over the next 5 fixtures. And if I just open up his actual profile here, and we take a look at the upcoming fixtures, we can see that he has a very, very decent game week 7 fixture against Brentford at home. Now, on paper, of course, this looks like a good fixture, but off the back of what we saw against Liverpool, clearly Brentford are a tough cookie to crack. And although Liverpool did score 3 against them, they were clearly a very well-drilled side in the way that they actually go about their games with the tactical nous. So I think this will be a tricky game for Benrahma, but this is the one game that he's predicted to score 4 or more points in. After this, Everton, Spurs, Aston Villa and Liverpool. Clearly some tricky fixtures in there. We've seen Aston Villa shut up shop against Man United. Of course, Liverpool are very tricky fixtures. So as we can see with the upcoming fixtures, although Benrahma is a very, very appealing asset, it is worth noting that over the next 5, we do have him predicted to score not as many points as some other assets who are cheaper, the likes of Jorginho, Ward-Prowse. And while I do think that Benrahma is a nice option to come into the side, I think if you're currently sat there with Mikel Antonio, we have to remember that West Ham do have Europa League fixtures coming in now, and with a squad that is not as deep as other teams, they might have to rely on these sort of premium players in their side to carry them through the Europa League games. So while Benrahma is a brilliant pick, I think if you are currently sat there with Mikel Antonio, that might be enough West Ham coverage going forward over the next 5 league matches. So the next player we're going to look at is going to be Chelsea's Rudiger, who is the other player who's likely to rise in price tonight. And of course, Rudiger has been a very, very good asset so far in the course of the season. Very consistent in the Chelsea side. I think a lot of Chelsea fans would agree that not many other players in their side can play in that left centre-back role. That is why when you're looking for a less risk-averse player, he is probably the man you want to go for in this Chelsea side. And what I've got for you guys is a bit of a treat here on the Fantasy Football Fix site. And this is going to be the Opta Stats Sandbox. This is an absolute gem piece of the website. For those who have access, obviously, membership, you need to get involved in this because it is unbelievable. So obviously the stats are taken from Opta Stats, and you can basically just select as much data as you want. So here, just to give you guys an example of what I have done here, I have gotten rid of all the teams and just selected Chelsea. I've gone into the defender section and I have basically just got all of the essential stats that you want to see from players, really. So of course, I've gotten up here the Chelsea defenders ranked from highest points scored, which we'll see from Alonso, to lowest scored points, which is going to be Emerson here. So we've already discussed Alonso in yesterday's video with FPL Raptor. As I mentioned, head over to that video yesterday where we discussed that in a bit of detail. But I really want to focus here on Rudiger, Azpilicueta, Thiago Silva and Christensen, because I think this is a really important topic right now in FPL. And while we all know that Marcos Alonso is kind of known as the best Chelsea asset if you're looking for the highest FPL ceiling, but naturally there is a bit of risk about him because of the potential rotation of a Champions League winning left back Ben Chilwell. So I think a lot of managers are looking at potentially going into this Chelsea defence with an eye on one of the centre backs. But again, which one is the guaranteed game time, which is kind of why you're going against Marcos Alonso. And right now, of course, with Reece James's injury, it's likely that he's going to be out for a minimum of 4 weeks. Now, of course, 2 of those weeks are going to be an international break, so that might mean that Reece James is going to be quicker in FPL terms than it actually seems. But right now, it does seem that if Reece James is going to be ruled out, Azpilicueta is likely to take up the right wing's back spot. Of course, Tuchel is a man of change. Hudson-Odoi has featured on that right wing back spot, but you would expect Azpilicueta to be deployed on that right wing back spot. I think that it's safe to say that Rudiger is then essential on the left wing centre-back position. And then we could easily see Thiago Silva in the centre-back and Christensen in the right centre-back. Now, as we can see on the chart here, Chalobah has had minutes already. Of course, got that wonder goal against Aston Villa. Currently on 21 points. And as we can see, he's already played 3 league games. So he is definitely a player that we should not be forgetting about, because in the easier fixtures, and this is why we're targeting Chelsea defenders, I see no reason why Tuchel isn't going to give some minutes to Chalobah, because I believe he definitely does value him as a squad player and as a potential starting 11 player. So as we can see there, of course, we're not looking at the XG for Chalobah, but the minutes there are showing that he is going to be a potential rotation risk with some of these centre-backs. Christensen right now, of course, 450 minutes in comparison to Thiago Silva's 286. Obviously, Thiago Silva took a while to adapt back into the Chelsea side. But when we do look at it, I really do think that when we look at the XG, of course, Rudiger is the main man in that area when we do look at the centre-backs. And he is currently obviously scoring the most points of these. But interestingly, Azpilicueta is one that I definitely have an eye on. It's 6 million. Obviously played 6 games so far. He is an essential part of the Chelsea defence, and really the only reason he will be getting rested is mainly just due to age, with the mixture of the Champions League and the Premier League, probably just giving a few minutes in the legs in the easier fixtures. So that is another player that could potentially be a rotation risk. But when we do look at the XA of Azpilicueta, it's clear that this is going to be something that is going to be consistent if he does play in that right wing back position. So last up, I just want to look at Rudiger versus Christensen, because I really do think that while we know that it is basically the risk is going to be Azpilicueta versus Alonso, I think Alonso probably wins that battle there, but we have made a case for Azpilicueta definitely over the last few minutes. I do think that Rudiger versus Christensen is basically the way that managers are going to be looking at getting a more risk-adverse player into their defence. And obviously Christensen potentially going to be 0.6 million cheaper than Rudiger, maybe 0.7 million cheaper. I think a lot of managers are looking at him being the budget option in their side. And just looking at the two touch maps here for both of these players, obviously right now when you target a Chelsea defence, you're not really looking anything beyond a clean sheet. But if we can get some additional attacking returns, then we will 100% take those. And as you can see from these touch maps, Rudiger is given much more licence in the side to bomb on down the left. Now, of course, Christensen has played plenty of time as the holding centre-back, which is going to influence his current positioning on the map. But if we are to think that Thiago Silva will come in that centre-back role, then it is going to mean Christensen might get more licence. And a brilliant part of this touch map on Fantasy Football Fix is that we can actually include players or exclude players. So if I was to include Thiago Silva, for example, if I can spell him, Thiago Silva, then we can see here that the time that Thiago Silva has been on the pitch with Christensen's touch map changes to how it was. Now, I don't want to read too much into this because Thiago Silva's game time has been very minimal in comparison to other assets. So I do think that it just skews the map completely as it would do with Rudiger. So I don't want to look too much at this, but it's just another extension of the touch map that we have at Fantasy Football Fix. So when I do look at it here, when I take away Thiago Silva, my view on this is that Rudiger is still the better option to go for in the Chelsea defence. I think he's a guaranteed pick in the Chelsea back line. Nobody else can really feature in the left centre-back position. I don't think Tuchel trusts anyone else in that role. But with the injuries to Reece James and Azpilicueta's importance in the side getting game time in Champions League and Thiago Silva's age in the Champions League, I do think that Christensen's game time is only going to be improved with the injuries to those. So my personal opinion is Rudiger is the better pick. However, if you want to save some money, Christensen is a safer pick now with the Reece James injury, and he could be a brilliant option over the coming game weeks. So guys, that is going to bring an end to today's Fantasy Football Fix price change predictions video. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate that it has been a bit of a quieter video, of course, with lack of FPL changes, but I still think there's been some great value drawn up with the likes of the Chelsea defenders coverage and looking a bit deeper into Benrahma's underlying stats. So as always, guys, just a quick reminder that these FPL price changes aren't an exact science and they can alter. So in order to monitor these closely, head over to fantasyfootballfix.com or download the free app, which provides you with push notifications so you don't miss any of these potential FPL price changes. And just a quick shout out for tuning into this episode. We really do appreciate it. We are getting so close to hitting a landmark 30,000 subscribers. So be sure, if you haven't already, to hit that subscribe button and of course like this video. And with daily videos dropping, you don't want to be missing a single video. So be sure to hit that notification bell and you'll be alerted whenever a video is dropped. So we'll see you guys same time tomorrow. Cheers.